In 1987, there were no mobile phones or digital cameras. If you wanted to meet up with someone, you had to set a time and a place and you had to stick to the plan. The seasons seemed to linger around more, and in general, everybody seemed to have more time. The parks, museums, and subways were less crowded. The rhythm of daily life was more relaxed. So in today's Framelines video, I'm really lucky to be able to have a chat with photographer Mark Steinmetz about his new book, France, 1987. Mark Steinmetz has been such a big inspiration for me over the years. His photo book, Carnival, is probably up there with one of my all-time favourite photo books. And his new book, France, 1987, has just been published by Nazraeli Press. In the summer of 1987, when Mark Steinmetz was just 26 years old and living in a derelict apartment outside of Boston, he received an artist residency in the south of France, and in August he flew to Paris, where he just got to walk around photographing the city all day long for weeks on end. And fun fact, apparently when it got a bit colder, he was gifted a brown corduroy jacket to wear to keep him warm that apparently Gene Seberg had cried on. Being able to chat with Mark over Zoom was really cool. We had quite an eclectic conversation, talking about mobile phones, technology, our favourite Jennifer Lawrence movies, and he also answered a few questions from the Framelines community as well. When we started this YouTube channel, we didn't really anticipate it would open up these opportunities to interview and chat to other photographers in the way it has. It's been really motivating and rewarding, and if you enjoy these videos, please do check out Framelines magazine, which is our digital and print magazine, which we run alongside this channel. It helps support the channel. It's run by just Shane and myself. And it's probably been the best thing we've ever done photographically, I would say, if Shane doesn't mind me saying. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please do consider leaving a like or a comment or subscribing and checking out Mark Steinmetz's new book, France 1987, published by Nazraeli Press.
It's about 5 or 6 months kind of gallivanting around, just taking pictures. You know, as I write in the introduction, I was really enamored at the time with the work, many French photographers from the 20s and 30s, you know, not really paying any attention to what else might have been happening in photography at the time. But I took the pictures, and as in the case for so much of my work, I took the pictures and developed the film and poked around and, you know, brought some of them out to life. But I just had to keep on going, and you know, had to make some money, you know, so it's just over time, everything, and you just keep shooting. I think after 87, this was the fall of 87 primarily, in 88, yeah, I switched over straight. I went to Chicago in early 88, and I had a little residency at this place in Syracuse, New York, light work. And so I had a month after this residency. I guess I was at that age when it you know, and you didn't really have a home that you could do these little residencies. So I was a month at light work after maybe 2.5 months in Cassis, 2 or 3 months. That is a place that had dark rooms. So they put me up and had a little bit of money, and I just printed, you know, during a very cold month in the winter. During the pandemic, you know, there were a number of things that were going to happen, and all of a sudden they all just stopped. And you know, I could look into earlier bodies of work, and I think there was some discussion with Chris Pickler at Nazraeli about he puts out these one picture books that are fairly small, very, you know, very contained. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could do, you know, poke into this time period and see if there's that. And then I just really loved what I was seeing, and you know, there was a full book there. So
when was the last time you reviewed those images pre starting to work on this book? Have they been left unseen for quite a long time?
Yeah, left unseen. I've always had, you know, pictures are always in my mind. I know my pictures. It just, you know, what's going to make me think about them is maybe a little different. But there's a lot kind of in my head about what I've done, and it's actually a great relief making these books now and just kind of getting them out of my head. Yeah, it's been a crowded place.
Do you find like reviewing, I don't know, going back to those images from your late 20s, you're kind of, do you feel nostalgic about that period of your life as well? Do you find yourself, I don't know,
I don't know if
reminiscing
it's
about?
I don't know if
So
it's nostalgia. Maybe a little bit more nostalgia than I felt. I always thought that photography ought not be nostalgic. That really the pictures have to be good because they're interesting. Because you are you have a set of elements in the picture, and together they are they're something new. They're more interesting. That the photograph is more interesting than the thing that you're describing. And with nostalgia, then it's just like, you're pointing at this thing, and this diner from the 1950s, and the jukebox. But now I think it's kind of inevitable that time marches on, and there is a big shift between then and now. And there are some things about the old days that I like a lot. Little um, not having so many digital distractions for one
mm,
thing.
yeah.
I mean, there were none. And so I think there was more kind of silence, more quiet, more opportunity. Not that people were meditating, but that people were just kind of, you could sit on your porch and see the whatever, see the storm move by, and just a different kind of relationship to time, and a different relationship to what's outside of us as there is now. I think that now there's more, like the Instagram feed, but it does seem that it's different. It is different, that there are some things that I'm kind of fond of about, the past. And looking at work before this of mine, there are some that seem awfully early, like a very long time ago. And with Gary Winogrand, I always thought he was a very, very modern photographer, and I think he's still super ambitious, and people aren't picking up what he did. But his early work, it looks like a completely different era, the 1950s. It's shocking.
I think there's definitely a shift towards, yeah, people wanting to move away from that digital age. I have a 1 year old and I'm constantly like terrified about what the impacts are with like mobile phones and
Yeah, but it's great for you to have a 1-year-old. That makes you very present. That kind of yanks you out of whatever, we're all under spells,
mm,
So I think it's putting you into a different, it's puncturing some spell, and forcing you to contend with something you absolutely have to contend with.
yeah, that, I mean, it has helped. That's been a real like. I mean, I just part of me just kind of hopes like when he's older, like people will look at phones the way we think about smoking now. Like, oh, I can't believe we used to think that was okay.
No, I mean, I think it's great. This thing is here. It is. It's amazing. It's in some ways we are poorer, and in some ways we are richer. No king had this kind of power.
For me, I mean, this is something that's always struck me about your work is like you do take a lot of very what people would think are like very complex street photographs. They're dynamic. There's a lot going on, but they have such like a calming feel to them. Whereas you mentioned like Gary Winogrand, maybe it feels a bit more loud, but there's still like as much going on. Do you think that's a reflection of your personality or where
Yeah,
you were
I
shooting
think
or
so. I think so. Also, I mean, Gary Winogrand did that. It's sort of, he was in big cities. I think he was, New York primarily. I think it's interesting when he translates, the small camera aesthetic to a different venue. Like, he found great stuff in Texas, and then I personally think that there's a bit of a treasure in his LA work, which hasn't been dug out. But that's such a different terrain than New York. It's just a car culture. There's just a lot more space. The light is different. The people are different. He was always very good. If you look at Winogrand in '64, he was great at America. Kind of a road trip across America there, and the hotels and the things you spot along the road. But he did that, and I think it was more interesting to kind of photograph. Now I'm in Athens, Georgia, and I began photographing. Well, it was always a little more peaceful. Connecticut, Boston, Chicago. But after Chicago, I was working as a freelance photographer there, and then I got a job in Knoxville, Tennessee to teach. And it's kind of the small, medium-sized city that nobody would go to. It's not a place for a but so having a small camera in a kind of slower, less dense context, I think is, or had been an interesting challenge. I think maybe people have been, I think it still is, capturing the moments you can with a small camera is great.
What do you want people to like take away from this, the way you've sequenced it, the series, the overall experience of looking through this book?
Well, I think it's a beautiful book, and I think it has a beautiful feel. I'm, I think it's interesting as a kind of discrete time stamp, but also a little bit of a psychic stamp. I have some bodies of work that are done over a long period of time. I mean, the book The Players on Little League Baseball was done over 4 seasons primarily. A book on Carnival was done over like a long span. Always in the fall, always like, pretty much September, October. Summer camp was done over a span of time. So in each of those cases, I'm trying to, I begin and I try to keep the same thought, so I'm not shattering and changing my strategy or coming up with a different kind of poetry, or, I'm kind of persevering. But I always liked, so South Central is a book that was primarily 1.5 to 2 years in this one spot. And then France 87, it's like 5 or 6. It's not really time traveling, it's 5 or 6 months and all together. So I like keeping it as there's sort of a unity to it. I see it now. I mean, the cover has a de Chauveau, kind of a worn de Chauveau. It's had some experience. It's against these sort of classical columns. Anyway, and now looking at it, it seems like you can't do this kind of thing. There is a an attitude that the people have in their bodies and their body language that's a bit different than you see now.
I might jump over to a few questions from our
Sure, sure.
community. Mark Sugden says, Mark is quoted as saying that he photographs ordinary people in the ordinary landscapes they inhabit. Having owned a couple of his books, I'd like to know what he defines as ordinary and what would it take for him to consider something extraordinary.
Actually, I did not say that. That was something that was written for me by, oh shoot, I forget his name. He was a cinematographer who did like American Gigolo, and then I think he was the Academy Awards president. Shoot, but he wrote that for Angel City West, the second volume. So that's a book on Los Angeles. And I actually didn't say ordinary. I don't think I said that. I think that's what he said. However, I think I maybe said normal, which is the same. But what is extraordinary? I mean, I think the ordinary is extraordinary. Photographing something highly dramatic or highly wonderful that everybody can agree upon is not super interesting to me. I think, you want to photograph something that you alone love, that you alone are interested in, and then or and then you can share that with others, and maybe there will be people who can see that. But you want to reveal things, you want to see beauty in just what is, and it's not rare. I mean, I think photography can help us have, as Robert Adams says, more affection for life. And if you go too far into what's considered the extraordinary, it all gets kind of boring quickly. I mean, these Hollywood movies where there's just over the top special effects. It's just numbing, and it just doesn't really make a deep imprint for me. I mean, I think some of them have merit, of course, but I saw a movie. I mean, I've seen it twice, and I just saw it a few days ago. But Winter's Bone.
Love
Um,
that film. Jennifer
yeah,
Lawrence, right?
yeah, Jennifer Lawrence, early
Mm.
Jennifer Lawrence movie, and $2 million budget, a lot of local actors. And actually, it was very extraordinary. So I don't know what I'm saying, but I think the simplicity and not trying to it's kind of how you tell a story too. Not in that movie, you're just dropped into it and figure it out. And in most movies, they just take time to explain what's happening, and like in case the dummy in the back doesn't get it, it's like. So a lot is just how you're describing and how you're telling the story. I mean, I guess I feel my books are, it's a little like movies. I have, this is a little something I've directed here on France 1987. I without a crew, I did it myself. I didn't spend a ton of money to make it.
I love that idea. Yeah, you're the director shooting a movie. Jordan Blossom asks, for someone so well known for their environmental portraiture, does Mark specifically prioritize the person or the environment first when it comes to creating his work? If it's something that's constantly changing, how does he change his approach to what he shoots?
I mean, it's all together. It's like, you're not just photographing the butterfly or the bird. You're photographing the butterfly and the bird in the sky. It's inseparable. The context around is inseparable. I think, a lot of pictures I take because it's just so in the moment. The light is that way. The context behind is that way. It's very rare that I would move somebody over from one spot to another spot to take the picture. So what I'm saying is that I would, if it's not the person and it's not the context, it's both. I might pass by the person if the person were in another context. It's kind of rare
Mm.
that I think this face is really great and I need to take a photograph. It needs to be in the light though. It needs to be, it's like,
Often feel like it kind of has to work because that's what it is. This is what's going on. This is the person. This is the environment. We've got to we
well,
work with what
I
we've
mean,
got.
I like that too. I don't really want to direct or screw around with things. I mean, like hey, somebody like Jeff Wall, there's so much kind of production. I don't think it's that interesting, compared to just a slight picture where like because something is really happening, it just has this, it's like a really sharp sword blade compared to something that's, produced.
Going back to that sort of like direction idea. Maybe you aren't like posing someone particularly, but you might be like, "Hey, can you just do that again?"
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
that. That's what I do. I
yeah.
say, can you repeat that? Can you, or look this way or that way?
Alex Greenway asks, "Who are/were your inspirations, and is there anybody out there at the moment you feel is creating interesting work that we should know about?"
Well, I have numerous inspirations. Really, so much of the history of photography is rich and a place to mine for your own inspiration. Of course, the Americans, Winogrand, Friedlander, Evans, Helen Levitt, Dorothea Lange, so many, and the French, Brassai, Curtage, Auger, of course, um, Cartier-Bresson. Maybe those are primarily. August Sander was, I got a book of his at just the right time, and um, super great. There's tons of good stuff. Um, Nowadays, I don't know. I really liked Peter Funk's Funk's
Yeah.
work, the Vanderbilt and 42nd Street.
Mhm.
For the same reason, I'm interested in like Paul Graham's work, like you know, maybe the shimmering, maybe the present, because it's um he's switching up the form a little bit of straight photography and making interesting pictures on the street that are new. Um, I think I haven't seen the On Millet show, but I think her pictures of there's a book Contested Terrain that I think is good of very different, a very descriptive, large camera.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Okay, great. Well, say
Yeah,
hello to Keith. I just saw him in LA.
I massively appreciate your time. Very
Well,
cool to meet you.
okay,
Nice
thanks.
one.
Okay, okay. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.